Hey, Crustacean Nation, and welcome back to Lobster Tales on the Athens Rock Lobster Network. It's the go-to way for you fans to learn more about your favorite players. As always, I'm your host, Matteen Rad, and joining me today live from the Great White North, you may know him as the Rock Lobsters number 10. You might know him as Super Milan. You might also know him as the FPHL MVP of the year in 2025. Garrett Milan, Millsy, thank you so much for joining me. How have you been enjoying your off season, and what have you been up to back home?
It's been good. Obviously, the weather here right now is getting nice and warm. Obviously, not as warm as down south there. But no, it's been going good. Did a couple of trips with some friends, and then it's been golfing and working out and training for the season coming up. So it's been good. Getting a little work in with some of the kids doing on ice skills coaching. But yeah, it's been a good summer so far for sure.
You mentioned it. It's only a matter of time until we're back to work for the 2025-26 season. You had mentioned last offseason, you had said that you were unsure if you were going to play again, coming off an injury, coming off a surgery. What factors went into you deciding to come back and also selecting Athens to do so with?
Yeah, it was a tough decision last summer. I didn't know what was going to happen after my back surgery. And just kind of the way the season went before that, up and down, and kind of coming to the rink every day, not wanting to get on the ice just because you're so injured. But no, I started feeling better at the end of September, and some teams started reaching out, and the offers were good, and it was a good place for me to go to start fresh. And I think it was like the organization was fresh, brand new. You kind of make your name for yourself, but also for a new organization coming into the league. So I think that was a huge benefit for myself and a good little thing to start. And Marty obviously did a great job of recruiting, and he's had a great background of bringing in players and coaching himself. So I think it was a no brainer for myself at that point, and I think I made the correct decision for sure.
Do you feel like you went through any similar thoughts this offseason before deciding to come back, or was it an easier decision this time around?
No, it was a way easier decision. I think just like last year, I think just, coming back to the game, not pain free for the most part. Obviously there's bumps and bruises throughout the season, but actually coming to practice and enjoying putting your skates on again and being able to do that, right? So I think that was the biggest thing is I fell in love with the game again. Especially playing for Marty. Obviously, it was a great season to have that, a coach that has your back and a coach that wants you to succeed and everything. And lets you play hockey. And I think that was the big thing is last year, I think, we were let play hockey and kind of bring your skill out and take advantage of that. So I think this year is a no brainer. Obviously talking with Garrett in the off season, he's been tremendous so far. And I like where his head at going into the season. So it was a no brainer for me to come back for sure.
Look, I'm gonna take you through some of the moments that come to mind when it comes to your MVP season, but you were the author of some of the most memorable moments of the team's inaugural season. When you think back to last year, what is the first moment that comes and springs to your mind?
There's a bunch of different ones. Obviously, the start of the season was a little bit rough for our team having to come back and forth to practice. Running in the van every day. But again, you get to meet your teammates. You get to know your teammates a lot quicker, right? So I think it's kind of like we almost had mini road trips almost every day for the first 2 months. So I think that brought the team pretty close together. Going into Monroe that first week, again, we kind of came in the locker room there wasn't really ready, and we're sitting there kind of being like, holy, but we banded together. And I think that was huge for us is being on the road for that first, you know, 2 months or so. So it was kind of nice to have that camaraderie as a team for sure. And then obviously, having that opening night in Athens, it was huge. It was obviously great to open that rink with the tremendous fans that we have. So that was cool to have that for sure.
How about that Monroe trip? What's the memory that springs to mind with that? Because for me, it's Texas Roadhouse. So we have Matt Garcia getting saddled up there for his birthday celebration. What memories
Oh yeah,
come of those first trips to Monroe?
you got to get the rookies involved a little bit. Obviously, it's fun to have them do that type of stuff. But no, yeah, it was good. It was honestly like, we didn't really know what to expect going into Monroe. Obviously, they haven't been a team for a while either, and we didn't know what the fan situation was going to be like, the rink situation. I think it's funny because I think that I'm pretty sure the first morning skate we couldn't even skate because they were still working on the rink as well. So it's pretty funny how it goes back and forth with some of the things. But again, it's just little hurdles and little things that you got to get past as a team. And I think we did that pretty well. Obviously, we came in and had a big, I think it was like a 7-2 win, I think the first game. So we knew we had a strong team, but it was also fun. It was fun to see that, right? Because we didn't have any exhibition games. We just came in there and we did our thing. But it was a cool thing to see for sure.
And then that leads us to the first home game, and that first home game was just so electric. And I was curious if that had caught you by surprise, because I know myself personally, I knew there was excitement around the team, but I didn't really know what to expect coming into the first time we would get on that home ice. What were your thoughts at the time?
It was, we all thought it was going to be sold out. We all thought it was going to be tremendous fan support. Obviously we had the week before, I think it was the games that were canceled. So, and when they were canceled, right, we was 3 o'clock. We were same thing. Us as a team, we were having pregame naps, waking up from pregame naps, not knowing what was going on. Right. So it was kind of confusing that situation. And I think the organization itself handled that really well. Cause that's obviously a tough spot to get put in. Is you have two sellout crowds that week before you even get to the weekend, and then all of a sudden they're both canceled. I think the organization did a great job of kind of handling that situation, that PR situation, because we could have lost a lot of fans that just off that hop, right? And that's obviously not what you want to kind of start off the season with, is losing that fan support or interest right away, right? So I think we did a tremendous job of doing that and winning that game and coming in and seeing the fan support. And I think the fans came in and saw a great representation of how we played hockey. So I think it was huge to bring in that rink and show that excitement to the fans. And they stayed with us all year, so it was great.
The arena itself, I'm sure it was a huge selling point to
Mhm.
bringing a player of your caliber to the club. As someone who knows the building inside and out, what do you love about Aikens Ford Arena?
I mean, it's great. It's great for practice. You have the natural light in there first and foremost. They did a great job of having. There's not a bad seat in that rink. You go to other rinks in the league, or you go to other rinks in other leagues that I've played in, and there's walls beside you or pillars somewhere where you can't see, maybe every part of the rink. But they did a great job. There's that natural light in the afternoon and the mornings, and then at night you have, so many great things that you can see. And again, not a bad spot in the rink, so it was great. And I think it's steep enough too, but not too steep. But the fans kind of are on top of you, where other rinks are kind of behind, so the fans are a little bit more spread out, going upwards. So I think it's cool for the fan perspective that they do get to see a little bit better of the ice surface.
You ended the season as the league MVP, led the FPHL in points and assists. What do you think were the contributing factors to you having a season that was your best as a professional?
I think just the confidence. The confidence was there throughout the season. My teammates had confidence in me, and my coach had confidence in me. But I think there's tremendous players around us too. Obviously, right? You can't have that type of season without the player support around you. So it was great playing with some of those guys, obviously. But I think it's just feeling better. It's funny. I was joking around. It's like, oh yeah, like back surgery. You're young, but I felt 4 years younger than my age now, just from having that back surgery and coming back, actually having pain-free games, practices, right? Because you go into games and you haven't been able to practice hard, you haven't been able to work on certain things because of an injury. You don't have that success or that confidence in games to pull some of the stuff off, right? So I think last year was a lot to do with that, is just feeling healthy and getting back to my old self with my body. So that was good.
How much was having someone like Shanks, Carter Shinkarik, me and you talked a lot about, and I've talked a lot about with him as well, the fact that, an elite forward and elite D man could have so much chemistry and such a huge partnership offensively,
Mhm.
and also the fact that you're two Western Canada guys.
Yeah.
What was it like having Shinkarik to be out there with you, not just on the ice, but in the locker room as well?
Yeah, it's tremendous. Obviously, he's been around a lot of teams, and that's the thing is he's one of those guys that was a first year captain, and he's taken bits and pieces off of every one of his captains that he's been with, whether that's a good piece or a bad piece, and he takes that into consideration and works that to his strengths, right? So he did a great job the first year doing that, and I think on the ice, obviously, he's a very tremendously skilled player. So it's cool to work with him and kind of bounce ideas back and forth off each other, and where you're like, hey, I see you here, you see me here, and we can kind of look for each other on the ice that way. But to play with a guy that can, move the puck up ice and be up there is a good attribute to have for a forward for sure.
You're obviously a leader and a captain in Pensacola in your time with the Ice Flyers, but you had also signed on to be an assistant coach for the team. How do you look at that role, and how would you describe your approach as a coach?
Yeah, obviously, I think last year I just kind of tried to help Marty when I could. I don't want to, overstep what he's saying, but he did a great job of like integrating myself into those talks, into practice. If he says like, "Hey, if you see anything, like let the guys know, let the group know." So that's kind of just things that I pick apart right there, little nuances in practice that if he wants guys working on a certain thing to kind of show guys the reason why he wants that done. So I think this year, obviously, working with Garrett, he's been tremendously open with me so far, and it's good to bounce ideas back and forth off each other and what he's looking for a team and what I think we might have been missing situation wise. So I think it's been good, but just to kind of have a little insight. I've been playing 10 years pro, so I think little things that I can tell the guys like, hey, coaches are looking for this, or hey, you're a bubble guy, or you haven't been doing well potentially. Hey, work on this potentially, or this is what coach wants you to be getting a little bit stronger at. So I think just kind of being that middle ground for a player, especially a younger player, that they can come to me and they don't necessarily have to come to the coach if they don't want to, is good for them as well.
You've already touched on it a little bit, but a new head coach taking the Rock Lobsters into a new era in Garrett Rutledge. Just those early conversations, more about those early conversations with you and Coach Rutz and what those conversations might have been like.
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, we got just connected with each other as soon as he signed. I think the next day we talked to each other on the phone and kind of just bounced a bit of ideas off of each other and kind of seeing where the team was going to go, which direction they were going in, and which kind of players we needed to bring in to make ourselves just over that hump a little bit. Because obviously we had a tremendous year last year, but there was just a couple little pieces maybe missing, and run into a hot team in playoffs. So I think we did a tremendous job of kind of getting on the same page there, and he totally agreed. And I think it's been good ever since. So it's been good to work with him, and it's nice to have he's a young mind. He's hungry in the game to get up for coaching, but he's also open to hearing other ideas too, which is great. So I think it's going to be a great connection with us for sure.
You bring up your 10 years playing pro hockey, and you've done it everywhere. You've done it all over the world. And I'm curious, being in the Rock Lobsters organization, what are the biggest differences that you've seen playing in Athens and playing for Athens and playing anywhere else?
I mean, just the amount of support you get from the ownership group. I mean, it's huge. Like if you need something, they're not hesitating to spend money to get what we need, whether that's gear, like meals, things like that, right? That guys need for after games. And I think they're open to a lot of that, right? So I think it's good because what you kind of put back in your organization is what the players kind of get out of it, right? If you sit there and some of the players maybe not getting what they want off the ice or certain gear or whatever it is, their attitude towards coming to the rink sometimes diminishes throughout the year. So I think the organization has done a great job of providing the rink in the league, right? So I mean, you have the facilities there that there's no complaints there. So that's the thing is I think the players and again I told players all year. I said, hey, like this is the best it's gonna get for this level and even two levels above even, ECHL teams don't even get some of the stuff that we get in the locker room. So I mean, it's great to have that backing by the ownership group and they know how to put a good product on the ice for sure.
We're seeing some of the names announced that are returning for next season and all the familiar faces.
Mhm.
Does that make it more exciting for you, knowing that you're trying to finish unfinished business from last season with a lot of the guys that you started it with?
Yeah, and I think that was like the tremendous that like our group started, and I think the championship mentality was from there from day one. Obviously we didn't get to that point that we wanted. We fell short in playoffs, but I think we have the good core guys coming back that are hungry for that, and I think that's why a lot of us are coming back is just to have that. Hey, we want to go. Either some guys are there last year or whatever it is, they want to go out on top. They don't want that sour taste of hey, we had a good regular season, good first season, but we didn't get it done in playoffs, and I think now the older or the younger guys know kind of what it takes. And it's, we told guys from the get-go, it's like, hey, you know what, playoffs are one goal games. They're 2-3 mistakes that change the game, where during the regular season yeah, there'll be games, where teams win 5-1 or 6-2 or whatever it is, but in playoffs it's a lot tighter games and those mistakes are amplified. So I think that's huge that those young guys have gained that experience now again, going to this season for sure.
You had one of the playoff moments, probably the biggest and best playoff moment for the Athens Rock Lobsters last season. As you said, the result wasn't what the team wanted, but
Mhm.
you had that amazing breakaway goal where you're just stiff arming a guy the whole time, and you just shovel it in with one hand. That kind of goal, I mean, how much are you just? Is it just improvisational? You're just going by the moment, knowing that you have what's in front of you to work with. Can you kind of take us through that goal if you can?
Yeah, from what I remember, yeah, just kind of going down the side on the right hand side there and trying to beat that defenseman to the net. They had a couple good defensemen that played me hard throughout the series and throughout the whole regular season. But I kind of got good body positioning on him and try to get that low center of gravity. Obviously, I'm not the tallest guy, so you kind of use your height sometimes to your advantage. So I think I got low enough, and that was kind of the only play I had. If I was going to get a good shot on net, it was that keep the puck away from him and just kind of try to get it up on your back end. And kind of fortunately it did, because there's a lot of times it might just roll on the ice into the goalie and not look like that. But I think I got a little bit lucky there, so it was good.
You talk a lot about your size. I think that's a lot of what makes you a fan favorite. It's made it very very entertaining to call your games, not just because of your skill and your speed, but because you've never backed down from any sort of physical challenge. Did you know that? Is it kind of one of those things where it's almost like a prison mentality, like you can't back down from the biggest guy? What is your mentality when it comes to getting in those more physical moments?
Well, I think there's a couple different reasons. Obviously being short and just a little bit smaller stature throughout my career, it's like you have those guys that want to pick on you and think they can easily pick on you, and you got to show them that you can fight back, you can hit back, and it's funny when you do, and they're like, oh, okay, like he's 30, he can get at me, right? So you got to push back, and I think obviously too, it's kind of sets an example for the players. If someone that at a stature of that is doing that all game, no matter what skill level that player is, then they got to be doing it. You know what I mean? So there's no excuses for certain players if they're 6'2", 6'1". It doesn't matter what height you are, or what level or what skill level you are on that team. Every player can produce hitting wise, and that's the thing is like I think our team this year is going to be down the lineup hard nosed, hard to play against. We don't want to have any shifts off where we're giving their top players easy chances to score, right? And I think that's what we need to do a little bit better of a job this year is just have every single line contribute anyway. And that's again not just scoring goals, not just putting pucks in the net, but playing hard, playing physical, and kind of showing other teams that we're not going to back down for anybody.
Well, Garrett, it's time for our question or crustacean segment here on the show. For those of you who don't know, this is Crustacean Nation's opportunity to ask their favorite players the questions they want the answers to. To be able to ask your favorite lobsters a question, make sure you follow the Athens Rock Lobster fan page on Facebook and look out for posts from yours truly. Garrett, our first question is from a familiar face. Niven McCrary says, when I think of Garrett, I think of all of the great memorable moments like the teddy bear toss goal, winning shootouts, and him reaching 100 points. Is there one not so great moment or game that still sticks with him? What would he like to do differently this season?
That's a tough one. I mean, obviously there's so many games throughout the season. You can pick, I'm pretty hard on myself whether, I score, play a good game or play a bad game. I think I always want to improve and get better and not content of that game. But I think the biggest one sticks back is that you want to have a better playoffs. Obviously we went down early in that first game pretty bad, and I think if we had a better start, that series could be a little different. But I think just yeah, if I can help, again, I'm an offensive player, and I'm that's my job to be offensive on that team. And I think if I, maybe scored a couple extra little chances in those games, it would have been um, a different result. So I think, yeah, going back to playoffs, I think that's the biggest thing. Regular season games, guys are going to have nights off, but I think playoffs, everyone's got to be on and everyone's got to finish on those chances that they have.
Up next is someone from our stats support staff. Kelly Templeman asks, what is your go-to pregame hype song, and do the rest of the boys approve?
That's a tough one because music, I kind of like everything. besides the old screamo and that type of stuff. But anything, I kind of honestly let the guys play their own stuff in the locker room. I'm not really touching the stereo because everyone's got their preferences. But no, I don't really have like a full go-to song necessarily. I just kind of listen to what's on the stereo in the locker room, and the guys do a pretty good job of DJing, so I leave it up to them.
Who's usually in charge back there?
It's funny because we used to have Orca wanted to do it for a little bit, and then we had Picard do it for a little bit. I think it's been rotating here and there, and I think some guys are a little bit superstitious. If they have a bad game, they kind of try to pop out of the locker room and run with their phones. So we try to get on the guys like, hey, we're gonna have one DJ, and if you're the DJ, you're the DJ. So I think we're gonna have to crack down on that one this year too. So we have music playing at all times.
Rebecca Marshall with a couple of questions I'm sure you've been asked a lot. First, any pregame rituals? And she also wants to know who your favorite player is.
Pregame rituals, not too much. When I get home from pregame skate, I make breakfast, and then about an hour and a half later, I have pregame meal, which is around 1:30. So that's my last meal before the game, and then I try to have an hour and a half nap, and then get to the rink around 2 hours and about 15 minutes for the game. So nothing too crazy. I try, when I was younger, there was so many rituals you go through and you get in your head, but for a 52 or a 56 game season, yeah, you try to lessen those things because you go crazy if you miss one of them. So I try not to have too many rituals, just kind of sit there and relax and then enjoy it before the game. Um, Favorite player, that's a tough one. Um, NHL player or teammate?
I would say NH, maybe a player that you looked up to and like maybe try to replicate a
Yeah.
little bit.
That's a good one. I mean, obviously, like Sidney Crosby growing up was huge. He plays a full game, not just offensively, and he's a great leader. But Martin St. Louis and Marcus Naslund were my two favorite players growing up as a kid. Obviously, Martin St. Louis with his size and his grit, and try to have a game like him. If he's going to score goals, but obviously get in there physically and play hard nosed hockey. And then Marcus Naslund, just from being in Canada here, Vancouver guy, he was pretty good back in the day.
Karen Backrot on the thread with I thought, a very poetic question. She asks, what part of your game is instinct and what part of your game is art?
Cool. That's a tough one. Um, I think you work on your moves and your skills throughout the summertime, and you kind of know, in the back of your mind, what's your strength. You have a couple go-to moves that you want to do, but obviously, I think you got to read the play too, right? Like I have, I don't want to take any secrets out, but I know there's, if I'm going to do a toe drag, I know if the D-man is set up in a certain position or bites on a certain maybe first move, then he's gone. It doesn't matter who you are on the ice. You're not getting back. But I think the thing is, too, it's got to be a lot of not improvising per se, but just reading the play and reacting. Because I think if you are already set up and to do a move that you want to do, but it's not given to you by the other team, then it's not going to work. So I think, yeah, that's why, a lot of guys in the summertime work on their skills, just to have that in their back of the pocket where they can kind of get something else out of there, not just like one move or one shot. If you have a guy that shoots glove side every single time he shoots, okay, the goalie's going to figure that out after the third, fourth time you play against him. Or if you're going to do the same move on a D-man every single time, they're going to say, hey, I know he's coming down. I'll just give him the outside. So I think you got to change it up and you got to have a couple different moves. But I think every player does have their go-to move that they get comfortable with. It's just a matter of if that player gives it to you on the other team or not.
Sage Culpepper must know how much you love to golf. He asks, what has been your favorite golf course in the Athens area?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, Jennings Mills has been pretty good. We played one out towards Augusta. Wow, I'm gonna mess up this name right now. I loved that course. I'm trying to remember the name of this now. But that was my favorite course. Forget the name of that now. But now Jennings Mills has been good. The We haven't played Athens Country Club, which I heard is very nice. Georgia Club was another good one. But yeah, those are the two courses that stick out with right now for sure.
Where do you rank among the guys? I know Pix is the guy to beat, but are you right behind him?
Yeah. Um, I'd probably say I'm behind him. But there's a bunch of good golfers out there, and it kind of changes each day. There's certain guys that can be good or bad. It's tough when you're playing throughout the season. You're not really working on your craft. Out on the golf course per se, like you're not going out and practicing, you're not going out and playing 3 times a week. So you can have a round in the 70s, then you can come and have a round in the mid 80s, right? So it all depends. So I think there's a handful of guys that are kind of right there. 3 or 4 of us that can kind of go back and forth each day.
John Pearson simply asks, do you have a favorite quote?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There was one back in the day, and I might mess this quote up, but it says it's not the size of the dog, but the size of the heart in the dog. I think it's called it's about
I said,
goes off like that kind of.
not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog.
Fighting the dog, yeah. And I think that's a good one. I think that can kind of work for everybody, right? Because again, if you're going to be a guy that's 5'8" and can run around and have that heart, like again, a lot of coaches, same thing. When I'm coaching, I'd rather have a guy that's got the big heart that's going to go out there and give it every shift than a guy that kind of takes off shifts here and there or games here and there. And I think that again, that's what we're building our team this year around is like you got to have heart. If you're not going to have heart, then we don't want you. So I think it's the passion of the game that translates into the heart of that. But I think that's one thing that some players in today's day and age are lacking. But I think it's a big thing to have for sure.
Last but not least, Jake Zirkle. Jake says, after such an impressive season, I'm curious if he had any offers to play in a higher league next year. If so, what were the reasons that drew him back to Athens?
Yeah, I had some opportunities if I wanted to play in the ECHL. But this organization is treating me very well. I enjoyed Athens. It's a great place to play in front of the fans, the rink, the city itself. But especially at my age, I don't think there's a reason to necessarily go to the ECHL, play another 20 games. I think it's a great spot where I'm at, and if you're 24, 25 years old, yeah, you're definitely trying to work your way up, go to the ECHL, maybe back to Europe again. But last year was one of my favorite years in all of pro, so I think there's no reason why I want to change that right now.
Garrett, that just about does it for our show, my man. I really appreciate you coming on. And as always, man, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Crustacean Nation, it's not too long now until you get to see Super Milan back on the ice at Aikens Ford Arena. Head on over to rocklobstershockey.com to register your interest for season tickets or purchase your single game tickets now.